Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Tonight, owners of small and medium-sized enterprises evaluate the Cameroon Business Forum that took place here in the economic capital, Douala, the 9th edition, chaired by the Prime Minister of Government. We shall be getting the reaction of some participants who will be questioning how far the Cameroon Business Forum has gone in improving the business climate in Cameroon and also fostering small and medium-sized enterprises across the national territory. Also, in this newscast, we talk about campaigns ahead of senatorial elections on the 25th of March 2018 that began across the national territory last weekend. What is the atmosphere in Bamenda Northwest region of Cameroon? We shall be telling you more of that in this edition of the news. We'll also be talking about curfew that has been renewed in the chief town of the Northwest region of Cameroon and in the entire Northwest region of Cameroon by the governor. Those are headlines. We shall be right back with the details. Stay with us. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Hundreds of business persons have been converging here on the economic capital, Douala, for the 9th edition of the Cameroon Business Forum. But before we come to that, let us take a look at the senatorial elections preparations in some parts of Cameroon, precisely in the chief town of the Northwest region of Cameroon. The UDP political party that has pledged to provide solutions to the current socio-political crisis rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. If the party's list of candidates is voted into the Senate, the chairman of the United Democratic Party was speaking while presenting the 13-man team up for election. The UDP party, however, has no councillors. It should be noted in the Northwest region of Cameroon, but is hoping that the Electoral College is going to seek, first of all, their consciences. Details in the following report. Four political parties, that is, the CPDM, the Social Democratic Front, the UNDP and the UDP, are taking part in the senatorial election in the Northwest region of Cameroon.
And that's why we say, if we have been doing so as a party.
But the race would be a tough one for the National Union for Democracy and Progress and the United Democratic Parties, as the existing 34 councils in the entire region are run by the SDF and CPDM. But the chairman of the UDP who heads the party's senatorial list is not discouraged. He is hoping that councillors will put the people's interest first and get rid of those who fail to tackle the socio-economic problems of the population.
These councillors that you are talking about, which are elected, does not belong to political parties. The vote they shall use, the card, the voters' card they shall use to vote, bear their name, does not bear the name of political parties that invested in them. Therefore, they shall have their consciences with them and vote people that can accept them. The problem in this country, what you must correct is that those parliamentarians do not come to serve parties, they come to serve the public. So you will not go now to tell me that a councillor from a particular community will not serve that community, will serve a party. No. The party invested, they have their liberty to vote whoever they bring that can serve themselves well.
During the UDP meeting in Bamenda, the 13 aspiring senators of the party were presented. The United Democratic Party, taking part in the senatorial election for the first time in the region, is promising to put an end to social injustice and bridge the gap between the forces of law and order and the population.
Other divisions in Norway do not have members of government, whereas Muslim division alone has 3. And one of those was in Bali recently, taking the pride to another one of those restaurants. Is that correct? Social justice. Social injustice. So we are going to propose to remind the head of state, tell the head of state the truth, and to make sure that the security officers or officials should consider the public as partners, not enemies. And the public should equally consider forces of law or other as partners in the security.
The UDP party officials believe that local parties represented at the National Assembly and the Senate failed to provide lasting solutions to the Anglophone crisis. Reason why the president of the party says that providing solutions to the unrest would be a priority. And ahead of the March 25th senatorial election, Madame Regina Mundi is leading the CPDM senatorial candidate or senatorial list in the northwest region of Cameroon. Madame Kenze Emilia Kalebong is leading the Social Democratic Front Party list. El Arch Lawan Bako, as we saw in the report that just ended, is leading the UDP list, and Leonard Tumenta is top on the list of the NUDP political party. They would have to woo the 1,080 councillors in the northwest region of Cameroon. On to something else. It is in the midst of ghost town that the senatorial candidates began wooing the various voters in the northwest region of Cameroon. Today in Bamenda, for instance, this morning the streets were scanty, market streets deserted, and only traders with perishables could be spotted around the food market. It was a similar atmosphere in Kumba, as we can see, where traders were not found. Local inhabitants were not even on the streets. It is equally reported by reporters who are on the ground that various local inhabitants had gone to the farm and they could not even be seen in their various residents. That was the atmosphere in some parts of the northwest region of Cameroon today as the people were observing the sit-in strike that began more than 1 year ago. It was a similar atmosphere in Kumba, Meme division of the southwest region of Cameroon. And it should be noted as well that the governor has simply extended the curfew in the region, that is in the northwest region of Cameroon. This time it is till further notice. A release today by Adolphe Lele-Lafrique has prohibited movements of persons and properties within the region from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. Governor Adolphe Lele-Lafrique says that the decision seeks to contain the activities of what he calls secessionist activists against forces of law and order and the population. It is not known when the ban is going to be lifted. We now talk about a very sad incident, or before we talk about the alleged raping of 2 minors in Kongsamba of the Mongo division of Cameroon, let us talk about the business forum that opened in the economic capital Douala today, chaired by the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Philemon Yang. Economic experts from the public and private sectors are discussing strategies to step up economic growth in Cameroon. They were meeting within the context of the Cameroon Business Forum, the 9th edition, chaired by the Prime Minister, Head of Government. As I earlier indicated, Celestin Tawamba, that is the president of the Cameroon Employers Association, GCAM, decried the degrading state of the business climate in Cameroon. Speaking at the event chaired by the Prime Minister today, the president highlighted the administrative setbacks, tax pressure and high taxes, insecurity and government failures to develop the private sector in Cameroon. And we shall be having the excerpt of the president of the Trade Union of Employers of Tourism and Hotel Sector. She is Shanta Lewat. She was speaking to Equinoxe Television.
You know, for me, smaller is better than nothing. So getting this forum, for me, it's a beginning of something. So what we have to ask now is to make it maybe every term or every 6 months, because we need to share our ideas. The problem for me is that maybe we don't talk too much within the private sector and the public sector. And the CBF is the platform where we can be meeting and sharing. Maybe we are waiting only for this event to come to bring our preoccupation. We have to start now making letters, making some survey, bring it to the government, and then we can be following what is happening beside our preoccupation. Of course, you know, I tell you, it's better to have smaller than nothing. So for me, it could be better if we can bring all the answers to the question. But as the Prime Minister was saying, they are still there waiting for contributions. So maybe we have to work more.
Contributions of the
For me, you know, I'm in the tourism sector, and for me, I'm very, how can I say it? I'm not satisfied because tourism can be the #1 way of bringing this country out of poverty. So for me, I want the government to come together with the private sector to build something very big, very huge, to make sure that the tourism is the #1 in the economy in this country.
What's the rate of?
No, it's very poor. It's very poor. It's very poor. You can see it yourself. And with all what we are facing now in the country, Boko Haram, the Anglophone crisis, all this, so it's very difficult. We have like only 5 or 4 regions working normally in tourism sector. So it's very poor. Very poor.
The challenges of some owners of small and medium-sized enterprises there. They were speaking to our reporter Babla Jonathan on the sidelines of the 9th Cameroon Business Forum that opened in the economic capital Douala to the chart by the Prime Minister side of government. We now talk about the sad story of 2 kids who are said to be victims of rape by their own uncle. The incident in Konsamba of the Mongo division in the littoral region of Cameroon has left local inhabitants and families in shock. Let's have the details with Smart Njikan Gabriel.
It was a black Saturday morning for inhabitants of the Ngang quarters in Konsamba 1 municipality, Mongo division, littoral region. Mothers weep in desperation after 2 minors by name Mbianda Stella Noela and Maopa Chana Noela, aged 7 years and 6 months respectively, were sodomized by their uncle. According to this witness, there were 2 kids inside. Their mother was preparing food to give to them before going for a burial. But suddenly, the mother was told that her child has just fallen, vomiting and stooling at the same time. Just when she was about taking one to the hospital, the second fell, having the same symptoms. Unfortunately, the first died while the second was left under observation. The man accused is 31 years old Joel Tanko, uncle to the 2 kids, who was visiting his brother at Nkonsamba. The intervention of the forces of law and order enabled the suspect not to be killed by angry inhabitants as he was ferried to the police station. Many now blame the mother of the 2 kids for abandoning her children to attend a night vigil, a thing she ought not to have done owing to the fact that the husband was not also available.
An incident that went viral and highly criticized by Cameroonians at home and brought a bitter pill to swallow to inhabitants of Konsamba, as we could see, while some reports have it that one of the kids was under critical condition in hospital. We have latest information that a 7-year-old child passed away a few hours later. Let's have the details once again with Smart Njikan Gabriel.
The pains of losing 2 children in a single day still remains fresh in the family compound. After the painful death of Mbianda Stella and Chana Noela Saturday due to forceful sexual assault by their uncle, the compound that the incident occurred continues to receive sympathizers. Amongst them is the quarter head of Ngang. I'm very surprised about what happened, but the case is already in the hands of the state prosecutor, who was here on Saturday. We are also thinking about a possible cleansing ceremony for the quarter after the horrible incident. but let investigations continue. As people continue to ask questions about what could have pushed a young man of 31 years old to commit such atrocities, the father of the two kids says justice should take its course. I'm having a very terrible feeling. About the incident, I have nothing to say. Justice should take its course. The suspect of the sodomization, according to unconfirmed sources, was a homosexual who resides in Douala.
That is Martin Jikan Gabriel on the situation of the two children that were reportedly sexually abused by their own uncle, the state prosecutor. This afternoon in the Kong Samba of the Mongo division of Cameroon visited the residence of the two minors who were killed to officially announce to the parents that they could now get the bodies of the two kids for burial from the mortuary. According to our correspondent in Kong Samba, the two minors will be laid to rest this weekend in that part of Cameroon. On to something else, circulation was paralyzed for several hours along the Douala-Yaoundé-Bafoussam highway over the weekend. The road was completely blocked in the locality of Melong, where a tree fell across, making it impossible for vehicles coming from Douala and Bafoussam to move across. It took several hours for rescue soldiers to clear the mess of the highway for circulation to resume. It was practically difficult for commuters to use the Douala-Bafoussam highway and to go about their normal activities. On to something else now. We now talk about the refugee situation in neighboring Nigeria, where some 20,291 Cameroonians from English-speaking parts of the country are now registered as asylum seekers in Nigeria. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees, which published the figures, said that they are registered at Cross River as well as the Benue State, where of course we surely shall be coming back to that in our subsequent newscast, as well as the report of Derek Jato on why several refugees had to flee to neighboring Nigeria. We now talk sports football, as we already started seeing the images. The interim Indomitable Lions head coach Alexandre Bellinga has published a list of 23 players who would begin camping on the 21st of March ahead of the friendly encounter against Kuwait, that is on the 25th of this month of March 2018. On the list we have Fabrice Ondua Onana, Andre, we have Kamini Carlos, Faye Collins, Eboa Felix, Fabrice Ngandu Ngandui, Teku Adov rather. Yaya is one of the players. We have Zambo Anguissa, Siani Sebastien, Nyom Alan, Manjek George, Kanambiyik, Jean Amel, Basogo Christian. Those are the various players that would be camping ahead of the friendly encounter, as well as Njia Clinton, Mukanjo, Benjamin Olinga, Fabrice, Abubakar Vincent, and we have Bahoken Stefan, Chupomoting, Toko Ekambi, and Tawamba Leandri. And we continue with sports. Barrister John Kameni, the president of the Southwest Cycling Federation, has decried the poor management of the cycling sports system in Cameroon. He was speaking at the cycling tour to keep Southwest cyclists active. Details with Derek Jato.
On the heels of the cancellation of the Cameroon cycling tour, Southwest cyclists are on their pedals.
When we heard the disappointing news of the annulment of the Tour du Cameroon, we thought it wise to make the world know that cycling in the Southwest is still very much alive, and that we can never be discouraged because of poor management and some misunderstanding.
Kumfo Barrister John Kameni, the president of the Southwest Cycling Federation, says such a shame could have been prevented if the National Bureau of the Cycling Federation was proactive.
And the message is that we should not always rely on government to ask for money to carry out issues that belong to the association. Cycling is a federation. If we have good potential partnership with sponsors and others who love the sport, we can effectively carry out international tournaments without necessarily going to the state.
Though flown in from Switzerland to come and witness the Cameroon cycling tour, now cancelled, did not discourage these former Cameroon national team cyclists from donating some cycling materials to the Southwest Cycling Club. Mr. Cesar says his dream is to see the sport discipline embraced by many in the region. The Southwest Cycling coach Thierry Marcel also used the platform and pleaded for equal opportunities to be given to all the regions of the nation.
Tous les enfants, il faut leur donner la chance de faire le cyclisme. Parce que nous, les gens de Sud-Ouest, on nous abandonne tellement que c'est comme si au Sud-Ouest, il n'y a pas de coureurs. Et vraiment, il faut que la Fédération camerounaise de cyclisme teste tous les enfants dans toutes les régions du Cameroun.
After winning the best climber and the yellow jersey here at the finish line in the 100-kilometer cycling race that took the over 20 cyclists from Limbe to Equinoxe and back, Tiba Henry, who doubles as the Southwest Cycling captain, said organizing frequent tests like this one will better prepare the club for bigger competitions. And the race was saluted by municipal authorities such as the mayor of Equinoxe Council, Mayor Tonde Gabriel.
Sometimes the youth, they think they have been abandoned, but we want to bring them together.
And on to something else, we stay with Derek Jato to talk about the UN Refugee Agency that has made it clear that they are running out of funds to take care of the fleeing Anglophone refugees in neighboring Nigeria. They say that they are unable to provide adequate food, shelter, healthcare and educational facilities due to limited finance. The UN High Commission for Refugees has said that they are in need of $18 million to respond to the dire situation of refugees and have so far received no single franc from some international partners. And reporter Derek Jato traveled to Nigeria, sought to know from some of the fleeing Anglophone refugees what actually made them to run or escape to Nigeria. He compiled this report for the news. The report of Derek Jato on the situation of Anglophone refugees in neighboring Nigeria. Since last week, we have been presenting to you the situation of the refugees. We talked about their deplorable health condition as well as their feeding conditions. That is more and more preoccupying. The number has continued to swell. Derek Jato spoke to some of the fleeing Anglophone refugees in neighboring Nigeria that are now seeking asylum in Benue as well as Cross River State in Nigeria. He sought to find out from them why they actually escaped from Cameroon. Let's have details in the following report.
Described by an international body as living under life-threatening conditions, these southern Cameroonian refugees here in Cross River State, Nigeria, are being visited by Aya Foundation, a Cameroon-based non-governmental organization. And the foundation came in from Cameroon with life-saving provisions, and the team first stop point was here at Equinoxe local government area to have a true picture from the Nigerian authorities of the situation on the ground. Mr. Julius Adai, Equinoxe local government area chairman, immediately convened a meeting during which he briefed Mr. Aya Abine on the registered number of Cameroonian refugees.
In a nutshell, they have to get into 17,000 registered ones. The number of unregistered ones. Those ones we cannot ascertain for now because the exercise is ongoing. The registration is a daily action. Exactly. If you look at it, there's a structure there I initially get to the United Nations as an office to register them. So they do that on a daily basis, and occasionally they move into these areas where they are being found to register those who have not been registered. They are being given identity.
The accommodation centers,
right from the ranch axis, Novaneko local government area, through Boki, to Rikon and Eton local government area. There are 5, including Obudu, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 local government areas that are presently. Okay, I understand it is turning out to Akampa. Akampa is close to Calabar.
The fractured family sizes that came in.
And we quite sympathize with the helpless populace when they got to discover that households. In some cases, the families were scattered. You could find only the children without their parents, some wives without their husbands, some husbands without the wives. But in a few cases, they came in as told.
The commitment of the Nigerian government.
The government of Nigeria is ready to do more for them. Even my state government, His Excellency Professor Ben Ayadu, sent in quite a large number of relief material through SEMA that was distributed.
And as the chief security officer of this local government area, Mr. Julius Adai assured Mr. Aya Abine of the Cameroonian refugee security in his area of command.
The security.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Up next is Talking Point. Stay with us. Tonight we have as guest the president of the Cameroon People's Party, the CPP. She is a human rights and political activist, Edith Kawala. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on Talking Point and on Equinoxe.
The pleasure is ours as well. One day or 24 hours after the International Women's Day, CPP women dressed in black holding brooms staged a peaceful protest in Yaoundé. What actually prompted you to carry out such a move, looking at the political and social atmosphere in Cameroon today?
Yes. First of all, I want to say these were really women of stand up for Cameroon, women standing up for Cameroon. So it is CPP. There are some other political parties. The majority of the women do not belong to any political party. And we felt as women that our country has been going on, you know, we seem to have a government and even some other political actors who are behaving as if nothing is wrong in the country, as if we just go on about business as usual. And the women felt that on their day, they should express what was within their hearts, what is within their hearts, I can say. And we planned the activity because this was women from 9 different towns in Cameroon, 5 different regions that came together, and they said, no, we know that there will be official ceremonies of women wearing the cloth and dancing, and we are not against women celebrating. Women should celebrate. But we felt that at this point in the history of our nation, with the problems that we have in the Anglophone regions, with the problems that we have in the extreme north, with the problems that we have in the east, with the problems that even the women in the regions which are supposed to be okay are having with regard to water, electricity, sending their children to school, the women felt that no, if we do not come out as women and let the nation hear us, we will not be doing our duty. You know, women are those who bring back harmony to a society.
Did you go home satisfied, given that more than 20 of those women were arrested?
We were so satisfied. There were over 150 women who marched. These women knew, or every single one of them knew that they could be arrested. They were very aware of, we are in Cameroon and they are Cameroonians, so they were very aware of the dangers, and they chose to do it.
So it was not a surprise that they were picked up?
You know,
was there any particular reason as to why they were arrested?
No, I can tell you it's the usual Cameroonian story. We have a regime that uses the police as a political instrument for intimidation. None of those women was questioned. None of them. I, who was not arrested, because I was not personally arrested, but I followed the women throughout to ensure their safety and their security. So I was questioned as somebody who was responsible for the event. They got the information from me and discovered, as usual, that there was nothing. There was no criminal act. There was no violence. This was a very, very peaceful march, and it was our way of celebrating Women's Day. So you know, we could not. This group has been bringing together women from Northwest and Southwest and women from the other regions. And believe you me, the women are astounded to hear the stories of the women from the Northwest and Southwest, because they don't really know what is happening. Yes. So this has been one of the great successes of this group, is that the women are coming together and realizing that they have common problems, that also if this country is going to get back on its feet, they as women have to speak up, have to take their responsibility. So no, I tell you, every woman coming out of there, we feel so victorious and accomplished. We feel so strong.
But you cannot say you are completely accomplished, because you wanted to see the President of the Republic.
Oh, we still do.
You want to see the President?
Yes, yes.
What would change if you meet the head of state?
So the demand that the women were out to express was a request for an appointment with the head of state, and we have asked him that he should receive us by the 16th of March, so by Friday of this week, that he should provide us with an appointment. Why? Because the women, when we discussed, they said, well, he is the number one person in charge in Cameroon. And some of the women said, maybe he does not really know. As they were discussing with each other, discovering their stories.
But do you think the head of state is not aware of what is going on?
Women felt, is that what you think? The women felt, you know, this is not a Kawala initiative. It is a collective initiative, and on some points, I have to cede to what the women want. And they said, before we take any other level of action, because they are prepared for another level of action, but they said, before we do that, let us ask to see him and to talk to him and to explain these things to him and give him the opportunity to start seeing with us a way out of the situation. So that is what they have done. It is their first step. This is not a one-time event. These women are very, very determined to see peace and harmony come back to Cameroon.
Hoping that the head of state is going to grant audience to the women of Stand Up for Cameroon. Now, we talked about earlier the United Nations High Commission for Refugees that has published latest figures stating that more than 20,000 Anglophone Cameroonians are officially registered now in abroad Nigeria as asylum seekers. What, according to you, is making the people to flee from Cameroon to Nigeria?
Well, it is very, very clear, and this is what some of the women who were at the event on Friday were expressing to the others, that we are today in a cycle of violence. So this population had undergone a lot of violence from the state for many, many months without retaliating. Then we got to one point where those who are for separation from Cameroon, they said, we are no longer going to take the violence lying down. We are going to retaliate. So which they started doing. But what we see is that when they kill one gendarme, the army comes in and burns down 20 houses, burns down a village, and so on and so forth. Then when you burn down, those people whose houses have been burned, they become radicalized. They too join the movement of those who are willing to kill a gendarme. So we are in a terrible cycle of violence, which will not end. And that is why these women got, one of their key messages was stop. Just stop the violence. Because we cannot pretend that we are doing anything. Going to elections, having a ministerial appointments and so on. No, none of that makes sense in the current state of affairs. So, you know, these people are fleeing their villages because they are unsafe. No human being will leave his bed, will leave his home, unless he feels threatened. And we have seen, and I want to really thank Equinoxe, because you are doing a fantastic job in informing us. We have seen your reports from the refugee camps. This is not a pleasant place to be. It's not at all a pleasant place to be. So people would not have left their homes unless they feel their actual lives are in danger.
And the situation is more complicated for the various refugees because the UN Refugee Agency is lacking funds to finance, because in their reports this month of March 2018 they were talking about the need for some 18 million US dollars, and they have so far not received even a franc so far. What could be the implication?
Well, here is the situation, and that is why we came out on the 9th. We could not sit at home. We could not let Women's Day go by like that. Is that refugees, many people don't understand that the UNHCR raises money. It doesn't have money kept somewhere waiting for refugees. When a situation arises, it launches an appeal to donors. And right now in the world, there are so many situations which are demanding their attention. You have Syria, you have Boko Haram, you have... So this situation of Cameroon, which was unprecedented, nobody was expecting it, has come up now like an emergency within emergencies. So UNHCR is having to struggle to find the funding. And we as Cameroonian women say this is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that our government knows for a fact that there are at least 20,000, because the actual figures we think are closer to 50,000. As you know, most refugees when they and the government of Cameroon has not bothered to even send one minister there, to send one government official there to Nigeria to inquire what is the state of these people, or to listen to them. Why have you left your villages? What is making you feel insecure? So that they could now have a plan to secure the villages so that people can come back. It is very dangerous for us as a nation, because people sitting in refugee camps, you don't know what is being put into their minds. You don't know how they are being radicalized. You don't know, I mean, just the fact that you stay in a refugee camp is already a way of radicalizing you. So, you know, these are all the situations which we find
I'm talking
untenable.
about radicalization. There are a series of measures that the government is putting in place, precisely the banning on the circulation of motorbikes in some parts of the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. We equally have the curfew that is being extended on daily basis or weekly basis, so to say, by the governor of the northwest region. Do you really think that is a better way of solving the crisis?
You see, we have said from the beginning of this crisis that we should never have gotten to this stage, number one, because we should have dialogued. We should have discussed and talked our way out of a problem. But now we are in the situation where we are. Still, government, as they know, you know, the government is behaving as if they did not just have a crisis with Boko Haram a few years ago. You cannot win a war against an extremist group without the population being on your side.
But this is a people.
If the population is already feeling terrorized, now you take motorbikes, which Cameroonian does not know that motorbikes are the greatest creator of employment in our country today. So when you are burning those motorbikes or banning them, you are depriving people of the little means they have to generate some money for themselves and their families. Chances are that they are not going to appreciate that measure that you have taken. And government is taking these measures again without discussing with the people. Bring people together and say, I am certain that majority of people in the northwest and southwest want the violence to end from all sides. They want the violence to end, but they are human beings. They can tell you that this is the best way for us to put an end to this. This is the best way to put it, not dictating measures to people which they now leave as an additional burden. They are already feeling insecure. Their economy is already down because of this crisis for 2 years, and then now you remove from them again the means to feed their families. I don't think government is showing intelligence here, but they have not shown intelligence, unfortunately, since the very beginning.
Many
of this
political
crisis.
parties, politicians, opposition leaders will tell you that the only way to bring change is for power to change. Do you share a similar view? Do you think the
Now let me give you the CPP's view. The CPP's view and my personal view is absolutely correct. We have to, the BR regime has to go.
But how would the BR regime go when the CPP is not taking part in the election?
No, election.
You are not taking part in elections.
We say this as CPP. For us to have elections that can allow the BR regime to go. Because we cannot just go to elections. We have been going to elections in this country for 25 years. The BR regime has gone nowhere. On the contrary, they have consolidated themselves. So election is not a remedy for the regime to go. So it is regime to go? But as you can see from our actions on Friday, we are not indifferent at all.
I mean,
we are not indifferent.
To elections.
Even with regard to the election, we say what we have done as CPP is invite our political colleagues, invite all those who want to go to election to say, let us come together and demand certain changes in the electoral system. If we don't demand those changes and obtain them, if we don't build a dynamic of Cameroonians who are moving for change, there is no, we are going on an electoral, we are going on an electoral stroll to accompany Mr. Biya.
That you want to see in the electoral system in Cameroon?
Those ones are well known and well shared by the opposition. One, we want to see a two-round election. Stop talking to us about unique candidate, and so two-round election solves the problem of single candidate. Because you go to 2 rounds, second round, you are going in with a single candidate. Number 2, let the electoral calendar be known. I often compare this thing to a football match. Will you participate in a football tournament? If I am inviting you to the tournament, you ask me, when will the tournament be played? I say, sometime in 2018. You say, no, but exactly when? I say, no, just keep practicing, keep jogging. Be ready for the day. You won't accept that. Thirdly is the independence of the arbiters, that is the ELECAM, which organizes the election. As we know, majority of the members of ELECAM are CPDM members. Will you go to a football match where the referee is a former player of the team you are going to play? I don't think so.
So you are officially telling Cameroonians that the CPP party is not taking part in
we
say
2018. We say CPP party is for elections. We want to go to elections. We want to go to elections that will remove this regime from its seat. So in order to do that, we are inviting Cameroonians to join us. We are going to be very, very active in the coming weeks and months to join us to push for fundamental changes which can actually allow us to have regime change. Because we are not, CPP is not prepared to do is to go for an electoral stroll to accompany Mr. Biya as he consolidates his power. That we are not going to do.
The battle to call for changes in the electoral system has been going on for a very long time now. Do you think
so? Has the battle to get rid of Mr. Biya?
Do you think it can be successful this time around?
Of course.
To permit the CPP finally take part?
Of course. Listen, you don't give up a battle because it's taking long. Otherwise, South Africans, they fought apartheid for 100 years. Today, Cameroonians are happy to send their children to South Africa to go to school. What if those people had stopped fighting after some time to say, oh, this is too difficult, we will not. You don't stop a battle. People who ended slavery, we are happy to send our children to the US today as black people. But how many years did they fight against slavery? You don't stop a battle because it's tough. We are going to have our freedom in Cameroon, and for us, it should happen in 2018, and that's what we are working on.
We are not going to leave you without asking about the internal crisis within the Cameroon People's Party. Of course, it has to do with internal issues, but Cameroonians are preoccupied. What is actually going on from one crisis to another? It has to do with some members of the party or party officials disagreeing. Can you tell us more what is going on within the CPP?
So first I would like to say there is no crisis. It is as if you have a belligerent member of a club who has decided to go outside and make noise. This is what it is. Within our party organs and institutions, we have no crisis. we have an honorary chairman. So get the title, honorary. Everybody who belongs to organizations knows what honorary means. You have no powers as an honorary person. And according to the statutes of the CPP, according to our party constitution, you cannot remove a party president. You cannot dissolve organs. This is a Congress. It is a Congress that elected me. It's only a Congress that will remove me. It is a Congress that put into place the organs of the party. It is only a Congress that will destitute any other person. So, you know, we hope, we are taking a lot of measures within the party, legally and so on, to calm down this particular individual who is excited, by the way, about elections and going to take money to be part of presidential majority. So this is what these people are about, and we are not disturbed. As you can see from our activity, party activities are going on just fine.
Very well then. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you. Thank you very
so
much. A pleasure to be here.
To our viewers, it was equally a pleasure having with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. Until we meet again, goodbye.